Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you're watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a huge lineup of news I'd like to share with all of you today. So, we're going to talk about two major topics coming out from Ukraine. The first one we're going to talk about is a major drone attack recorded last night inside of Ukraine. Russia launched at least 140 drones targeting multiple cities inside of Ukrainian territory. We know that Odessa was heavily attacked last night. This is in southwestern Ukraine. Also, the capital of Kiev being attacked as well. So, we had reports actually that three countries, aside from Ukraine, had Russian drones landing inside of their territory. Belarus, I believe, had drones entering into there. Looks like they had to shoot one down. I've got video footage of some sort of aerial object falling out of the skies over there near the city of Homel or Gomel. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. Also, NATO member Romania being attacked last night as well by some of these drones. At least one drone heading into their airspace. They had to scramble fighter jets to intercept this drone, and possibly one of these drones could have crashed in their territory. And right now, Romanian authorities are investigating. Also, for the very first time, I believe Moldova also had at least two drones that crashed into their territory as well. So, looks like Russia was being very reckless last night and launching drones all over the place. Okay, and typically we see this a lot of times when Odessa is attacked. There's usually other smaller cities nearby Odessa in southwestern Ukraine that usually come under attack at the same time. And many times in Romania, we've seen Russian drones head into there. So this is probably 15 times now that NATO member Romania has been attacked by Russian drones. So we're going to talk about all those updates there regarding drone attacks inside of Ukraine last night. And we're also going to discuss more about the topic of this war potentially coming to an end in the next couple months. So I have a lot of updates coming out from Western allies of Ukraine, many top officials within NATO coming out making major statements today. So we'll talk about that as well as we move forward in this video. So let's go ahead and jump into the news, guys. We're going to hop on over to on X now. But real quick, before we jump into that, this photo is coming out from Moldova showing an impact crater at a farm. So this is a picture coming out from that area just to let you know, okay? That was one of the drones that entered in Moldova. So now we'll jump on over to NOAA reports. A large burning object was spotted falling in Gomel. I think it's Gomel or Homel. I'm not really sure, guys. Belarus reports suggest it could be a Russian Shahed drone gone astray. So yeah, not really sure exactly what this is, but many sources were indicating this was potentially a drone that may have been shot down. I mean, we've seen this plenty of times whenever Ukraine comes under attack by massive amounts of drones. Many times in the northern side of Ukraine, Ukraine uses electronic warfare to divert these drones and send them back into Russia and also into Belarus. So that's potentially what we're seeing here. But some of the residents in the area of Gomel or Homel in Belarus were recording this last night as they saw something falling from the sky. Okay, so most likely was a Russian Shahed drone. Okay. Now we'll move on to Vicegrad 24 breaking. Three Russian suicide drones have struck Moldova over the past few hours. Okay, so actually, my apologies. Actually, three drones, not two. So at least two or three drones entering into Moldova last night. This was video footage coming out from Moldova showing an explosion over here. Okay, so that's pretty crazy. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this could be the very first time, at least I have reported from what I remember in the recent past, of Moldova being attacked by Russian Shahed drones. So pretty crazy. These drones were just going everywhere last night outside of Ukraine. So very reckless by Russia. Also from Max 24, two drones have crashed in southern Moldova, at least one of which have been identified as Russian. The Russian ambassador was urgently summoned to the country's foreign ministry. Okay, so here's a couple of photos coming out from Moldova. Here's that photo I had for you guys on the waiting screen showing that impact crater on what looks like some sort of farm. Got a few other photos here as well. This looks like potentially a motor or something that was attached to the backside of one of these drones. And here's some more pictures as well. They were able to show like the serial number or part number for this motor here. And here's another one as well. Okay, so don't know exactly what type of drone this was. I'm not sure if it was a Shahed drone or some other type of drone that Russia had fired, but most likely these were drones coming from Russia crashing into Moldova last night. Here's another report from Vicegrad 24 breaking. Romania's defense ministry announces that a Russian suicide drone has intruded Romanian airspace during an attack against the Ukrainian border city Reni tonight. It's possible that the Russian drone has crashed on Romanian territory. A search team has been deployed. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, this is probably about 15 times now, maybe more. I think I've lost count how many times we've seen Russian drones attacking this region of Romania. Okay, this is the border of Moldova, and then we've got the border of Ukraine right here. Here's Odessa that was heavily attacked last night. I've got a video for you guys in a moment. And this area definitely comes under attack inside Romania a lot. Okay, we reported at least, I'd say 7 or 8 times just alone on this channel, but for sure up to 15 times now has Romanian airspace been violated by these drones. Many times these drones crashing in open fields over here in Romania. And again, I must remind you, this is a NATO member who recently decided to start taking action. And I think they actually passed some laws inside Romania just about 3 to 4 months ago to allow their military to shoot down these incoming drones, which previously apparently they did not have authorization to do so. So now from Polymarket Intel, Russian kamikaze drones 30 plus are attacking eastern Odessa. This comes after Trump and Putin's peace call. Okay, so yeah, literally hours later after Trump and Putin had their talk, we had drones entering back into Ukraine again, at this time in the city of Odessa that I just showed you in southwestern Ukraine. Take a look at this. All right, so you can see a major drone attack ongoing last night inside of Odessa, and Ukrainian air defense teams very active trying to bring down a lot of these incoming Shahed drones. Okay, so massive attack on Odessa last night. Here's a video coming from Kiev now. Vicegrad 24 breaking air raid alarm sounds in Kiev as Russia launches another wave of suicide drones at Ukraine. Okay, so even the capital last night looks like they saw some action with drones incoming as well. Take a look at this. Right, so I believe this is probably 3 or 4 nights in a row now coming out from Kiev that they've been attacked by not only drones but missiles as well. So looks like yet again another consecutive night of aerial objects coming into Kiev. Now for Max 24, drone attack on Russia, map from Drone Bomber. Okay, so Ukraine actually launched their own attack into Russia last night. Nothing super significant attacked. I believe there was a tractor plant that was attacked. I'll show you guys that here in just a minute. But we can see some of these drones heading up in the Bryansk region. And we know the Lipetsk region was targeted last night. Also, potentially the Ver region. I'll show you those updates. Looks like some of these were even heading towards Voronezh. And also Volgograd region and a few down here towards Crimea and Krasnodar. Okay, so not too many updates coming out from Russia today in terms of attacks. But we do have a few things we can show you. We'll jump on over here to Astra. 12 drones attack Russia's Lipetsk region overnight. An employee at an aeration station was injured by falling debris, Governor Igor Artemonov reported. The city experienced power outages, but according to local residents, electricity has now been fully restored. Okay, so the Lipetsk region last night, up near the Bryansk region, where just north of Ukraine, we had drones entering up into here. It looks like we had some power outages. You can kind of see it's pretty dark here. Just a few street lights are on, and it looks like they were able to restore the power, but there was some power outages reported in the Lipetsk region. Take a look at this. All right, so we can see air raid alarms going off in the Lipetsk region of Russia as well as drones were entering into their airspace. And I do have some more information on that. Here's from Max 24. The Lipetsk tractor plant was attacked last night. Local residents reported a series of explosions and power outages. Okay, so we've got a video here and a picture to show you of this facility that was targeted. Now, if you're probably wondering why would a tractor plant be attacked, if it's a tractor, I'm assuming like tractors for farming or something like that. Well, something we have reported recently in the past is Russia's using a lot of commercial enterprises, like plants things of that nature to kind of disguise the fact that these are actually military installations. That maybe Russia's storing Shahed drones in there, or some sort of military equipment, but they're disguising it as a commercial building that's used for civilian purposes. So that's possibly what we saw happening here. But we'll take a look at this video real quick.
Как ты, смарды?
Хули куда коты народу ебали, вот сейчас вспышка. Мы как коты.
Как ты, смарды?
Хули куда коты народу ебали, вот сейчас
Okay, I let that roll just a little bit more to let it rerun so that way you guys could hear towards the very beginning. There was some explosions over here, so it looks like several drones were entering into Lipetsk last night. And as far as we know, it was a tractor plant being targeted and potentially being used for military purposes. So this is kind of a Google Maps snapshot to show you guys the location of this facility here. And this is a picture of it, okay? So don't know exactly the extent of the damages, but reportedly there was an attack here on this tractor plant in the Lipetsk region last night inside of Russia. So if I get more information on that and we get video footage or pictures coming out showing damage, I'll let you guys know at a later time, okay? Now, also from War Translated, anonymous sources in the SBU reported that drones once again struck the Andreapol oil refinery station in Ver, Russia, okay? This is not too far away from Lipetsk also. So same area where these drones were headed. This is the second drone attack on this facility. The first occurred on January 29th, causing damage to the filtration pump site, additive tanks, and resulting in an oil spill and fire. This recent strike caused a fire in the area of the closed distribution device and boiler equipment warehouse, temporarily halting oil pumping. Okay, so looks like Ukraine may have targeted the Andreapol oil refinery, which they just targeted this not too long ago. There's a major pipeline that runs from like Bryansk region close to Ukraine all the way up to the Ust-Luga port in near St. Petersburg in the Leningrad region. And we reported just about, I want to say a week and a half ago or so, give or take, that the Ust-Luga port reportedly had halted their oil coming into that area as the Andreapol oil pumping station was reportedly targeted at that time. This is a major pumping station that transport oil from Bryansk all the way up to the Ust-Luga port. So it looks like they had to halt their operations there, at least temporarily. I'm not sure if it's back online yet. It probably is by now. But allegedly, the reason why there was a halting was an attack on the Andreapol pumping station, and Ukraine allegedly targeted it once again. And we don't have any information just as of yet whether there has been another halt in oil supplies heading to Ust-Luga. But if we get that information, I will let you know at a later time, okay? Now from Anton Yuroshenko, 2 modern radar systems were destroyed on the outskirts of Moscow. According to the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, a successful operation by Ukrainian intelligence services destroyed 2 Valdai radar systems in Dolgo Prudny, if I'm saying that right, 18 kilometers from Moscow on the night of February 7th. An explosion took out the systems, which were among the first Valdais to be introduced into service of the Russian military. They were used in the air defense of Moscow against drone attacks. Okay, so in the Moscow region, so this was on February 7th, looks like there was some sort of attack on 2 brand new radar stations called Valdai, and this is a video of it right here. We'll kind of let this roll for a minute. It's a very long video, so we're not going to show the whole thing, but this is reportedly some of the radar systems that were targeted. We don't know exactly how they were destroyed, probably some sort of sabotage operation, but these were apparently some new radar systems being used in the Moscow region that Ukraine had allegedly destroyed on February 7th, just about 6 days ago. Now from Anton Yuroshenko again, there could be nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. We had a talk with U.S. President Trump, and we had a very good conversation. Meetings are a priority for us, Ukraine, America, and only after such meetings, after working out a plan to stop Putin, I think then it is fair to talk to the Russians. I believe the Europeans should also be at the negotiating table because we are part of Europe and we will definitely be members of the European Union. It is important for us. They have helped us a lot, says President Zelensky. So Zelensky was yet again in another interview, and I want to show you guys what he was talking about here. The excerpt you were just hearing from me right there is part of what he was talking about, but he's talking about, having the Europeans be involved in negotiations coming up here very soon, as we heard recently that, Trump is kind of doing this thing on the background with Russia right now, and I'm sure Ukraine is not very happy about that. And it kind of makes it look like Ukraine's kind of being left in the dust, and America and Russia's just kind of negotiating this thing out without hearing anything coming out from Ukraine. So this is also Zelensky saying, hey, we need to be part of negotiations and we also want Europe to be a part of it as well. Take a look at this.
Передусім України, і нічого не може бути про Україну без України. І тому ми з ним говорили, була дуже хороша розмова. Ми говорили про все і про північних корейців. І він здивований, сказав, що його вражає те, що ми побудували таку систему дронів і таку технологічну платформу біля 200 підприємств. Він розуміє, що відбувається. Він розуміє, що ми номер один в світі, або одні з перших, але я їм сказав, що там не дуже далеко від нас Іран. І це велика небезпека. Вони так в топі стоять також по виробництву дронів. І тому для нас дуже важливо зупинити Росію. І Іран допомагає. І якщо дзвінки, це дзвінки, я все розумію. Але зустрічі для нас пріоритет Україна-Америка. І тільки після таких зустрічей, після напрацювання плану, як зупинити Путіна, я вважаю справедливо тоді вже говорити з русскими. Я вважаю, що за столом перемовин повинні бути і європейці, бо ми є частиною Європи, і ми будемо обов'язково членами Європейського Союзу. Для нас важливо, вони дуже багато допомогли.
All right, so after this statement, I wonder if Ukraine is going to kind of take their time with this and make sure that proper talks are being held without Russia in the background as well, maybe with the EU or whatnot, and also America. Prior to talking to Russia, and it looks like this is probably going to be one of the last things that will happen just before some sort of deal is made. So I noticed that he's talking about that here. And also a big statement, coming out saying that he wants European nations to be involved in the talks as well, okay? Now from NOAA reports, German defense technology company Helsing announced it will manufacture 6,000 advanced HX-2 kamikaze drones for Ukraine. This follows a previous order of 4,000 HF-1 strike drones, which are currently being delivered to Ukraine. So these actually look very similar to Russia's Lancet drones. I believe these might be some sort of reconnaissance drones. I'm not 100%, but it kind of looks like they are. And yeah, they definitely do look like the Lancet drones coming from Russia. So big update coming out from Germany, as it looks like they're going to be supplying some more drones over for Ukraine, okay? So moving on to another update now from ViceGrad24. Wall Street Journal reports that China has tried to convince Trump to hold peace talks on Ukraine between the U.S. and Russia and Beijing without the presence of Ukraine or Europe. Parts of the Chinese plan would also be to send Chinese peacekeeping soldiers to Ukraine. Okay, so I thought this was interesting as well. So even China's trying to get involved with these talks, and they're even considering sending their own peacekeeping soldiers to Ukraine. I mean, would Ukraine actually be open to that? That would be pretty insane if that were to happen. But China, all of a sudden now trying to be a mediator here and being willing to even send their own peacekeeping force to Ukraine. Let me know what you guys think about that. That was a pretty big story coming out today. Now for Military News UA, Europe will support Ukraine if Kiev does not agree to terms of peace. A peace deal concluded between U.S. and Russia, says Kaja Kallas, who is the vice president for the European Commission. The EU's top diplomat said that Europe and Ukraine must be involved in peace talks for any deal to work, and stressed that giving in to Russia before the talks even begin is a bad tactic. Kallas added that Ukraine's rejection of NATO membership in exchange for some security guarantees is not a peaceful settlement, but a capitulation to the Kremlin. Okay, so major statements coming out from Kaja Kallas. Go ahead and take a look at what she has to say here, about a minute and 20 seconds long.
It is clear that any deal behind our backs will not work. Any agreement will need also Ukraine and Europe being part of it, and this is clear that appeasement also always fails. So Ukraine will continue to resist, and Europe will continue to back Ukraine.
Is the US listening?
Well, you need Europe and Ukraine to also implement the agreement. So without us at the table, you can agree on whatever, but it will just simply fail because of the implementation is not there. Any quick fix is a dirty deal that we have seen before when it comes to Minsk, for example, and it will just simply not work. If Ukraine decides to resist, Europe will back the principles, Europe will back Ukraine. Yes, with 20% less if US decides to withdraw, but still, I mean, Ukraine will defend the principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the principles that also Europe stands for, and we are there together.
All right, so major statements coming out from Kaja Kallas here, and let me know what you guys think about what she has to say here. She's obviously sending a major message to Trump and Putin. As like I told you guys earlier, it seems like Trump and Putin are trying to do some sort of backdoor deal without Ukraine. At least it appears that way. I've been sending out a lot of community posts with you guys as well, asking you certain questions. We also put out a poll yesterday also. And she's coming out saying that any deal like that will ultimately fail, that the EU has to be involved in these negotiations also, and then ultimately Ukraine has to accept this peace deal also. So, what if Ukraine decides, hey, we don't want to accept? Is the U.S. going to cut off funding to Ukraine? That could be a possibility, and then maybe the EU is going to have to step up and support Ukraine 100%. But Zelensky did come out recently stating that they most likely would not be able to continue this war without the support of the United States, as the United States has a lot of the funding for them. So it's going to get very interesting to see what's going to happen over here in the coming days and weeks and months. Okay, now for Ministry of Defense, there can be no negotiation about Ukraine without Ukraine. Ukraine's voice must be at the heart of any talks. It's our job to put them in the best possible position to secure lasting peace through strength. Okay, so this is John Healey, the Defense Secretary for the UK. And you can kind of see, Europe's definitely speaking much differently versus like Trump in the United States. Trump is kind of like, let's just get this war over with. Let's end this war so people can stop dying over here. And at the same time, it kind of seems like he's leaning towards scratching Vladimir Putin's back versus helping out Ukraine. And they're going to kind of freeze the conflict, give up the territory to Russia. We've been talking a lot about that recently. So go ahead and look at what John Healey has to say here.
We've seen the calls from President Trump overnight, and we all want to see a durable peace and no return to conflict and aggression. And let's not forget, Russia remains a threat well beyond Ukraine. So my message in these discussions will be that there can be no negotiation about Ukraine without Ukraine, and Ukraine's voice must be at the heart of any talks. And as I say, the Ukrainians are fighting bravely. It's our job as defense ministers here at NATO to put them in the best position to secure a lasting peace through strength. Thank you very much.
All right, so no negotiation about Ukraine without Ukraine. I think that's a pretty good motto to support them. And yeah, it does appear that many top officials from the West inside of Europe appear to be more supportive of Ukraine and wanting to back them, make sure that they're able to get a good deal here and make sure that Russia is not allowed to attack again. Because if you notice here, he once again mentioned that still at the end of the day, Russia is still a threat to not only Ukraine, but also to Europe and the West as a whole. So major statement from John Healey today. Now from Anton Yeroshenko, the U.S. will continue providing aid to Ukraine because otherwise Putin will think he has won, says Trump. And frankly, we will go as long as we have to go because we are not going to let the other happen. But right now, Putin wants peace, the U.S. president stated. So this was a statement coming out from Trump yesterday. Just wanted to give you guys an update regarding him as well.
So we're getting security on our money. We're going to have it secured by, they have rare earth and they have oil and gas and they have a lot of other things. And we're asking for security on our money.
So does it mean you are not sending
They've agreed to it. Ukraine has agreed to it.
You are not sending any more aid to Ukraine?
No, we are, but we want it secured, and the money is going to be secured.
When will the U.S. stop sending money? When will the U.S. stop sending money?
Because if we didn't do that, then Putin would say he won. We're the thing that's holding it back, and frankly, we'll go as long as we have to go because we're not going to let the other happen. So
All right, so if you notice, he says at the end here, we'll go as long as we have to go, meaning from what I understand, supplying Ukraine weapons as long as possible. So that way they do not let the other happen. So I wonder what that means. I'm assuming that means so that way Russia doesn't win this war militarily. But you guys can let me know what you think that you interpret that of down below. But this was also a statement coming out from Trump today, and he is talking about the rare earth minerals coming from Ukraine, still stating that the only way they're most likely going to be sending weapons to Ukraine in the future is to make sure that they have security guarantees for their own money, as they want to make sure they get paid back. So the only way Ukraine will get weapons is if Ukraine gives up rare earth minerals from their territory, okay? Now, from the Ukrainian Review, Ukraine could still become a NATO member in the future if it fulfills all conditions, Swedish Defense Minister Pal Johnson said. I don't foresee the NATO membership as such being off the table for Ukraine, Johnson said before a meeting of defense ministers in Brussels. Okay, so yesterday I reported to you guys Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary for the U.S., he came out yesterday stating that there'd be no NATO membership for Ukraine, that was basically out of the books, and the U.S. would not allow it. But this is a statement coming out from the Swedish defense minister, Pal Johnson. Okay, he's stating that he thinks in the future there is a possibility that Ukraine could get into NATO. So I think it's highly unlikely right now, but maybe in the future, depending on how some of these talks go, maybe Ukraine can get back in at a later date, maybe not, but we'll have to wait and see what happens here when these peace talks start to unravel. Now from Max 24, Zelensky did not sign a financial deal on rare earth minerals proposed by Besant, according to CNN. Okay, so CNN reporting today that yesterday when Scott Bessent arrived in Kiev, he's the Treasury Secretary for the United States, and Trump sent him over there to negotiate multiple deals, but primarily talk about these rare earth minerals and sign a deal with Ukraine to transport weapons from the U.S. to Ukraine in exchange for these minerals. And looks like Zelensky has not signed that yet. But I do have another update here from Next. Zelensky informed Trump that Ukraine has received a draft agreement on rare earth minerals and has begun analyzing it. A final response will be given in Munich during a meeting with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. According to the CNN, Ukrainian president was counting on a personal meeting with Trump to discuss a large-scale vision of the world, but instead he was offered a financial deal. Okay, so looks like Zelensky is just waiting a little bit, still trying to analyze this deal and see whether it's something they want. Maybe they're contemplating something here. Maybe it has to do with some of these talks between Trump and Putin lately. And who really knows, but it looks like we could potentially hear a decision on transferring rare earth minerals for weapons from the United States from Zelensky as soon as tomorrow on Friday, because I believe that's when the Munich meeting is going to be held, and we should be hearing about that in the next 24 hours. Now for Max 24, Trump and Putin are likely to try to secure a ceasefire by Easter, April 20th or May 9th, says the Financial Times, citing Ukrainian and Western senior officials. Okay, so something I will note is May 9th, if this deal gets done by May 9th, I would think that on that day, Russia will probably declare victory, as that is Victory Day for them. And they celebrate Victory Day every single year on May 9th. So I wouldn't be surprised that that's why we're also trying to see this get worked out before May 9th. So that way Russia can come out and say, hey, we won the war in Ukraine. It benefited us, whatever it might be. So I thought that was interesting that the plan is to try to get this done before May 9th. But we have been hearing that potentially no later than like April or May, we could see this war maybe coming into an end if Ukraine and Russia can negotiate. Now, here's another update from Anton Yuroshenko. Donald Trump, great talks with Russia and Ukraine yesterday. Good possibility of ending that horrible, very bloody war. This was a new statement from Trump today on Truth Social. Great talks with Russia and Ukraine yesterday. Good possibility of ending that horrible, very bloody war. Okay, so you can see here, looks like Trump is happy with some of the talks that were ongoing yesterday between Putin and Zelensky, as he made phone calls to both of them. Here's another one from Max 24. Working contacts between Russia and the U.S. will be expanded in the coming days and weeks, according to Dmitry Peskov, who is the Kremlin spokesman. Ukraine will definitely participate in the negotiations, but there will also be a bilateral Russian-American track. Putin will be glad to welcome leaders of major countries to Moscow, including Trump, if they decide to come on May 9th. Okay, so this is a big update right here. We heard recently, yesterday, Dmitry Peskov announced that Putin had apparently invited Trump to come to Moscow, and looks like he invited him on Victory Day. So that would make a lot of sense based on that other post we were just talking about. As if they end this war by May 9th, would there be a major celebration in Moscow? I mean, obviously the war would be coming to an end, but Trump would be there as well, which is very interesting. And I think a lot of people may not like to hear that, but it definitely looks like if this is going to go this way and this war gets ended before May 9th, and then if Trump heads over to Moscow to attend the Victory Day parade, I mean, this could definitely look like Trump is very supportive of Russia and giving Russia the upper hand here compared to Ukraine. But you guys can let me know if you agree with that down below. If you disagree, then let me know as well. Okay, so this is also a big one. Participate in negotiations. There will be a bilateral Russian-American track, okay, that Ukraine can be a part of the negotiations, but still in the background, Russia and America are going to have a separate bilateral track, okay? They're going to be talking outside of negotiations with Ukraine. So I just think that's very interesting the way this is being handled. And again, I think a lot of people are probably very upset by that if you're a major supporter of Ukraine. Now from next to breaking, Russia to build naval base in Sudan. Sudan has announced a final agreement with Russia to build a naval base on the Red Sea coast. The 25-year agreement, with an option to extend for another 10 years, grants Russia the right to transport weapons, ammunition, and equipment through Port of Sudan, other seaports, and Sudanese airports for the needs of its naval forces. The new base will strengthen Russia's influence in Africa and have strategic implications for the Middle East. Russia is also involved in Sudan's gold mining industry, with private military companies, including former Wagner Group fighters, securing operations since 2017, when Wagner began its military expansion into Sudan and the Central African Republic. Okay, so very big update today. This looks like where Russia is going to be opening up a new naval base, okay, so inside of Sudan. And if you notice, it's very close to the Yemen Houthis, which I thought was interesting, and also not too far away from Israel, okay. So could this be a major threat to countries like Israel? I mean, Russia was stationed inside of Syria. They've been having issues over there trying to maintain their ports. I think for the most part, Russia's getting chased out of there, but I think there's still a lot of diplomatic talks going on, so that way Russia can remain inside of Syria. But looks like they are going to be opening up a new naval base down here in Sudan. So that could be good or bad for the Middle East. You guys can let me know what you think down below. All right, now very big reports here from Nexta. Bloomberg outlines 3 possible endings to the war in Ukraine: bad, grim, and catastrophic. Frozen conflict is number 1. Russia maintains control over occupied territories with possible territorial swaps, e.g. part of Kursk Oblast. Ukraine remains outside NATO. Europe pressures Trump to keep supporting Kyiv, while the EU builds up its own military strength. The best of the worst, number 2. The West does not commit to defending Ukraine from future Russian aggression, but increases military aid and helps strengthen Ukraine's defense industry. Sanctions remain or are tightened. This could open the way for Ukraine's NATO membership within 10 years. And then also, finally, number 3, catastrophic scenario. Trump loses interest in Ukraine, cuts aid, and shifts the burden onto Europe. Ukraine stays out of NATO, and occupied territories fall to Russia. The war may reignite in the future. Which scenario do you think is most likely? To be honest with you, I have no idea. I think the first one is probably going to be what we will see happen in the beginning, and then it all depends on how the talks go between Ukraine and Russia directly, and I'm not including the U.S. or Europe at all. It's mainly just what does Ukraine agree on at the end of the day, because if Ukraine does not have the security guarantees, that clearly appears to be a major part of this. That if Ukraine does not feel secured to make sure that Russia can never attack them again, then that's going to be a major talking point for Ukraine and potentially an end to negotiations with Russia. And then also at the same time, I still think that they want their territory back, and I think they want to try to get it back at some point, whether it means militarily down the road or most likely diplomatic means. But definitely any of these scenarios could play out here. I really don't know exactly which one is going to happen, but let me know what you guys think. Do you think number 1, number 2, or number 3? Share in the comment section. What do you think is most likely to happen at the very end of this after all the talks are completed, okay? It really could come down to either of these, okay? Now from Bliskovka, air defense forces destroyed 85 out of 140 Russian UAVs. 52 Russian imitator UAVs were lost locally without negative consequences. So last night, 140 Russian UAVs entering into Ukraine. So definitely one of the biggest drone attacks recently. I think we've seen sometimes up to about 120. So 140 being a lot more than normal. As usually it's probably more around 70 to 100 on average. So major drone attack onto Ukraine, as we talked about towards the beginning of this video. So there's that update there. And finally, one last thing to share with you guys from the Kyiv Independent. These are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of February 13th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. All right, so Russia's losses as of February 13th, according to Ukrainian intelligence: 1,250 troops, 23 AFVs, 168 vehicles and fuel tanks, 17 tanks, 58 artillery systems, 153 UAVs, 2 MLRS, 6 cruise missiles, 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and 2 special equipment. Okay, so something we've been noticing over the last 3 days or so is lots of equipment being destroyed, okay, especially tanks. We're seeing over 15 tanks just in the last 3 days. I think we had one as high as like 26 or 27, I think, just yesterday. Now 17 today. A lot of vehicles and fuel tanks being destroyed as well, 168. But the troop number is still much smaller than we have been seeing in the recent past. Okay, we've been seeing on average about 12 to 1,300 over the past week. So I have been noticing still we're maintaining right around that same amount. It hasn't really been budging much around there. Okay, so huge updates from this war, guys, and I'm definitely interested to see how these talks are going to play out and who it's really going to benefit. I mean, as of yesterday, it's not looking good for Ukraine. It really looks like Trump is really just working with Putin at the moment and not so much focused on Ukraine and not giving a whole lot of credit to Ukraine. And I'm sure a lot of people are very unhappy about that right now. But it's also the very beginning of these talks, and who knows, maybe Trump is doing this on purpose, and maybe something will 180 and U-turn and come back to another topic later. And it could change. You know, things could change on a dime, and we also have a lot of players involved here. Europe's involved with this as well. And ultimately, Ukraine has to make a decision for their own sovereign nation at the end of the day on what they decide to do. So it really could go either way, and lots of information coming out regarding these talks. So I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me to the end of this video. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.